Camera.
Okay, no worries. Hey everybody, hey everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. How you doing? How you doing? Hey, hey, hey. Everybody rise and shine and give God your glory. Rise and shine, rise and shine, rise and shine. Uh, Today we're going to be talking about, of course, the Supreme Court decision on presidential immunity and homelessness. That was a major decision. Um, Rendered by the Supreme Court as well. What are we going to do about the unhoused, about the poor? And increasingly, Americans are unhoused because they cannot afford rent, they cannot afford groceries, they cannot afford mortgages, they are living in their cars, they're not letting people know it, and on and on and on. And in Canada, they have legislation, law, that allows you to euthanize yourself. The state will assist you in euthanizing yourself. Did you know this, Daryl? If you are
I did
poor
not.
and unhoused. And there are many different stories of people who, when folks would reach out to them so that they felt connected to people, if they got a job, if they got housing, then they would decide not to kill themselves. But the fact that the state would assist them in killing themselves as opposed to assisting them in living themselves. What does that say about who we are? Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Wait a minute, because now we're going to criminalize the poor. We're criminalizing the unhoused by
Yeah.
ticketing them. By ticketing them. And you know what, Daryl, you would know this, and Dwight, you would know this very well. When you ticket them, they don't have any money, so they're going to have to go to jail, eventually prison. And then you know what they do when they're in prison? They work for corporations
Mm.
for cents on the dollar.
Mm-hmm.
Your Levi's jeans and Victoria's Secret used to be made in the prisons.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a Department of Justice program that facilitated that with corporate America. So we got a lot to talk about. But so Justice Sotomayor asked, is the president now a king? Well, is it really that simple? Because I think in some ways, attorney Daryl Jones, we might be a little naive about power and how it works. But what is the line? What's personal? What's political? J. Edgar Hoover made the personal political. One could argue that quite strenuously. Well, he did. He did do that. Shirley Carter from beautiful Philadelphia. How you doing? Everybody like and share, like and share, like and share, like and share. I'm going to come up in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. I'm Santita Jackson here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Of course, you are tuning into the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Weigh in with the Morning Stars. We got a lot to talk about today. And, of course, the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. And we're streaming live on Twitter at Santita J. I'm exhausted already, but we've got a lot to talk about. I want to remind you that the Rainbow Push International Conference begins August 13th through the 17th. Daryl, you will be there. Dwight McKee, you will be there, and we are working to make Rainbow Push headquarters. The Rainbow Push headquarters, the headquarters for those of you who are coming into town who will be participating in marches, who are interested in the issues. Chicago's going to be the hot spot, and the our building is named Dr. King's Workshop because that's the work that we do. Reverend Jackson was given an assignment, literally, by Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, and he has spent the last 60 years fulfilling that assignment, and he has never wavered. He's been faithful. So, everybody, August 13th through the 17th, Rainbow Push, go to rainbowpush.org. Just come on, come on, just come on, come on, come on. And everybody like and share here, like and share here. Go to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel and like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. And then go to the go to Santita Jackson and Friends and become my friend. And please, everybody, share the show. Share the show. Second hour, we will be talking about homelessness. That was yet another major decision rendered by the Supreme Court. Cities and towns and hamlets will be allowed to ticket the homeless. They're in the way. But it seems that there's a trend, at least in the Western world, in which we're treating those who are unhoused. We keep trying to clean up this language. It's they're homeless. Homeless. They are without homes, and they should not be. They're not unhoused. They're homeless. And did you know that in Canada, it is now law that the state will assist you in killing yourself? Again, another pretty term, euthanizing yourself. They will assist you in killing yourself if you are poor, if you are unhoused, if life is untenable for you because of that. Think about that. What does that mean? Now, this supposed to be the kinder, gentler part of the European program project in North America. Really? So what are we talking about? When you send these unhoused, these homeless people to jail and eventually prison, you know what they're going to do? They're going to work. And they're going to work for corporations for next to nothing. I would remind you, yesterday's show is playing on AM 950 radio right now. So if you want to tune in to that show, you're more than welcome to, but always come back to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel so you can pull up the old shows. Okay, but I wanted to interact with you, so we're doing the shows this way. So let's get right to it. What did the Supreme Court decide yesterday with regard to immunity? Presidential immunity. And of course, we have Attorney Darrell Jones, brilliant former prosecutor, civil rights lawyer. Indeed, he and Barbara Arnwine are perhaps the leading advocates in the legal space for our voting rights. Darrell, I'm going to ask you right now, I'm going to ask you for a little bit of your time, if not this afternoon, tomorrow afternoon, so we can pre-tape a show for the 4th of July on the vote. Mm-hmm. Because that is imperiled and people need to know what happens if you get to the polls. I mean, and your name is not there, but how important the vote is. On Independence Day, I think I want to talk about that with you. But of course, today, on Tuesday, everybody, at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time on WOL, Attorney Darrell Jones and Attorney Barbara Arnwine have their own show. What are you going to be talking about today?
We're actually going to be talking about the case that you're going to be talking about the second hour and dealing with those that are unhoused. We're going to have the president of the National Coalition for Homelessness in the U.S. on, as well as some of the people that were litigants that were involved in that case. And we're going to be talking about what it means to be unhoused and what the Supreme Court did.
Well, I will send you a link. You're more than welcome to join in. We're going to have Keith McHenry from Foods Not Bombs. Not Bombs from out in California in the next hour, along with this wonderful panel. So let's begin. But you know what, Attorney Darrell Jones, we got to begin with Dr. D. Dwight McKee, brilliant social scientist, dean of the Ma'afa Redemption Project. He is also the senior advisor to Cornel West in his presidential campaign, but he's a founding member of Operation Push, National Action Network. His activism has known no bounds, and it's been continuous for more than 60 years since he was a teenager. But you know what? He is truly a social scientist because he doesn't get emotional, Dwight. You don't get emotional about your politics. You said, what did you say? You're the weatherman. You didn't bring the rain. You're just letting us know that it's here. And 4 years ago, you were incredulous, like so many people on the panels, Darrell Jones, when Dwight McKee predicted these events. Mm-hmm. Even Justice Thomas, excuse me, let me refer to him properly, mentioned Jack Smith and questioned the constitutionality of his position, this special prosecutor. We got a lot to talk about. What was decided, and what do you think about yesterday's decision, Dwight McKee, which you foresaw?
How you doing, Darrell?
I'm not on the bridge anymore, Dwight.
All those legs flying.
I'm so glad you didn't jump.
Before you begin, let me send my love to D. Ray Jones and Robert and Carol Soskin. Oh, I'm so glad you all are here. And Shirley from beautiful Philadelphia. And of course, Carol's from beautiful Southern California, LA, Beverly Hills to be precise. Dwight McKee, what did we see? And now that you pulled Darrell out the water,
What I was trying to tell you all yesterday, there before the decision, is that you really have to understand the nature of the country. And if this wasn't going to be about Trump, Trump would benefit from it. But this is about the presidency and the role of the presidency. You're looking at the role of the presidency in a criminal enterprise. The United States is a criminal enterprise. It is the sum total of some Europeans who got together, came over on some boats, and decided to steal people's land and to justify that legally and to put a flag on lands that and declare it belonging to the people that they were subject to at the expense of the people that already live there.
Mhm.
And so in order to do that, there's few things you need to have. One is an army. Secondly, are some weapons. Thirdly, is a rationale and a justification. And then you codified all that in a document you call a constitution and declare that God gave you the right to do it. That is the America that we live in. And as the country expands and the need for resources expand, you take that same mentality and apply it around the world, exploiting other people's resources, taking over other people's governments, taking over their economies, and using them for your own self-interest. That is the America we live in. How do you justify that? How do you qualify that? Is you have to give the people who do that a certain level of immunity, because otherwise they become subjected to lawsuits and criminal charges and jail. And so when you look at the history of America and go president by president, every president we've had has operated at a level of illegality and exploitation, starting with Washington and moving all the way through to Biden. And so the decision was not a surprising decision to me. In fact, I really tried to tell you all yesterday where this was going. It's because in many ways, these guys already have immunity, a certain level of immunity. Nobody has charged them, because if you charge them, you become uh, a one who was involved in sedition. If you're domestic and you charge them, and if you charge them internationally, it becomes an act of war. And the country does not belong to any of the international courts, and they veto the UN whenever they're confronted. And so there's already a certain level of immunity that these presidents operate in. That's why I said that the way that would play out is they would say that impeachment would cover any domestic issues, because the only one that can charge them is them. Is you have to be part of the government, part of the power structure, part of the conspiracies in order to have standing to make the charge. But nobody outside of that beltway even has the right to make the charge. Power is you having the opportunity to impose your will on everybody else. That's really what power is. and anybody who tries to impose their will upon you, that becomes sedition and becomes an act of war.
Hey, everybody, what are your thoughts? Did the Supreme Court overreach? Do you understand what the decision was about? Even as we look at corporate media, Dwight McKee, brilliant social scientist, brilliant lawyer, former prosecutor, and one of the leading civil rights and voting rights attorneys in the country today, Attorney Darrell Jones. I'm struck by the corporate media shaping this around President Trump. And you and Dwight McKee were careful yesterday to say, no. This is beyond person. This is about principle. This is about the presidency. Talk to us. What happened yesterday, first and foremost? What happened? What was decided? That what are private acts? What are official acts? Why did Justice Thomas bring up Jack Smith, the special prosecutor? I mean, because the thrust of these cases against former President Trump is that he committed treason, right? Even though no one has formally charged him with that. That's the talk, right? That's it. That's at the center of the conversation. And if I always pay attention to Justice Thomas, because many people say because of his length of years, even though he's not the Chief Justice, this is now the Thomas Court. That he is really at the heart and soul of the court. And I believe that to be true. That having been said, he's thrown signals that he's going in the next term going after Brown v. Board of Education. He threw signals before that he was going after Roe v. Wade. I mean, pay attention to him because he lets you know where they're going. Yesterday he threw a signal about Jack Smith, but let's back up. What was decided yesterday?
Wow. You know, Santita, to say I was talked off the bridge is an understatement.
Well, you sent me the text with your legs in the water.
I think that we all expected that the Supreme Court was going to come back with a decision which was going to be like splitting the baby, as they like to say, that there were obviously going to be some protection, some immunity that was granted to the president. And then there's going to be this area of conduct that would not be immune, that presidential actions that would not be immune. And what we ended up receiving was far worse than that. And what the Supreme Court ended up doing was really giving absolute immunity to the office of the presidency. Whoever is president will be absolutely immune from anything that they do, any illegal thing that they do, unless they say it's a private act and not an official act. Well, the problem is they don't define what's a private act and what's an official act. They left that blank. They left that for Judge Chutkan to decide in the U.S. District Court when she then goes to try to clean up this mess that they've made. But in essence, what the Supreme Court now has done is they really have elevated this presidency to, many of the commentators call it being a king. It certainly would be right on par with that. It would have the power to do whatever.
Justice Sotomayor said that. Let's
yes.
in this scorching dissent, right? What did she mean by that?
What Justice Sotomayor meant when she was saying, obviously the last line is that, she fears for the democracy and that they've created a king, is that you now have one person in a branch of government that has the ability to do whatever they want to do and do it with impunity. Whatever orders they make, so long as they can cloud it, they can cloak it and saying that this is an official act from my office, then they can do it with impunity. They will not be punished. They will not be prosecuted. There's nothing that can happen to that person. This is the shroud. This is the cloud that has been created, the bubble that has been created by the Supreme Court. It even is going to call to question what the impeachment part of this could possibly do, since they're now have the Supreme Court saying that your acts are covered, that what you're doing is fine. Tell your Justice Department to go after your political enemies and make up stories. it's fine because they've made very clear that whatever you say to the Justice Department is going to be considered an official act. They went out of their way to say the conversations that you have with the Justice Department are official acts, regardless of the illegality of what you're asking the Justice Department to do. So if you are a member of the Senate or a member of the House of Representatives and you want to bring impeachment because you see them going after political enemies with lies and directing the Justice Department to follow lies and to make stories up to get rid of your enemies, the Supreme Court is saying this is covered by the official acts. There's nothing that can really be done. So this is what Justice Sotomayor was talking about when she was saying that, you know, you're creating this kingdom, you're creating a king, you're creating a position where, you know, it's a one of one. You know, in the House of Representatives, you have what, 435 different members that are sharing in power. In the Supreme Court, you have 9 different justices that are sharing in power, and everyone's decision gets weighed in to make a determination as to what happens. In the presidency, they're saying that you're one of one. So whatever decision you make, that's it. It's all on you. I underscore this with this and these couple of things. One, we've spoken on this show before, and you had John on talking about Project 2025. This is a page and a theory out of that Project 2025. What am I talking about? The Project 25 is the playbook of how the conservative side will be able to take over government and push through policies that will move the country far to the right. The same folks that are supporting Project 25 are the same folks that are behind many of the justices and the Federalist Society that have been appointed to Supreme Court that have now come forward consistently with decisions such as the decision, the immunity decision today, which now will give the president the power, the ability to do whatever he wants to do with impunity, that he'll be able to move the country and shape things in that way. That's what all of this, I think, becomes emblazed in. That's what we're seeing happen right now. And the question will become, Santita, how do we respond to it? You know, it's fine. Okay, we've been kicked. Our tails between our legs. Our heads have been down from the decision that's been received. The question now becomes, how do we respond? How do we react? And I think that part of that answer is going to will come with court reform and reforming the Supreme Court. But in order to get to the point of reforming the Supreme Court, so that we can have sort of the majority back in place, we've got to be able to get the Senate as well as the House of Representatives on board, and that's going to require folks getting to the ballot box and getting people in place so that the reforms can be in place, so we can begin to try to get a hold of this runaway horse.
Is the Supreme Court? I can see where the Supreme Court and their political and philosophical leanings could be a challenge. But is not the nature of the presidency something that we also need to look at? Because managing power, to me, is something that we've really got to talk about, because I don't want us to be naive about how the powerful behave. You know, irrespective of borders. You know, this. You know, John Perkins' book on the economic hitmen. You never knew how important economists are. He said, "Oh no, let me tell you what we do. I work for an American corporation, the Western world, and we need the resources in Venezuela. We need the resources in South and Central America and throughout the global South." And we approach the president and or the prime minister, and we tell them, look, we want to work out a deal with you. And you're impoverished, so we're going to bring the World Bank in on you, the IMF in on you. Number one, we want to put you in debt. But if you resist us in turning over to my business and to our government, that the government sends the troops in to oversee the corporation's business, if you resist us, we kill you. He's become a huge progressive. He said, I did not know what I was walking into, because that's our government. But
Mhm.
when you read his book and when you read others from people in the space, this is the behavior. Do you think, Daryl, before I go back to you, Dwight, we should be questioning not just the Supreme Court, but just the nature of just how we handle power, what we're really doing here, Daryl?
Oh yeah, it's not just the Supreme Court, and that's why I frame it in talking about the whole strategy with Project 2025, because what you're doing is that you're seeing the elite and the powerful and those that are wealthy being able to drive the car, if you will, of democracy, the car of the economy, and what happens from there is that the Supreme Court is shaped not by necessarily just the justices, but our $4 million man that you've made reference to, that's on the court, who really is bought and paid for with regards to the decisions that are being made, that's on the Supreme Court. And so when you have things like that that are in place, what ends up happening is that the court is compromised with its integrity. The court is compromised with regards to the business side of it, the corporatocracy side of it, and they'll end up making decisions that benefit not the society, not the citizens of the United States as a whole, but benefit the corporate interests. And in order to look at all of this, in order to understand all of this, we've got to really, start digging into it and understanding where money is coming from and understanding the influence that it's having, not simply in the court, but also the influence that it's having with our legislatures and all branches of government. It's there, and we've got to start unveiling that dark money that's there to understand the influence that it's having. So it's not just managing the Supreme Court; it's certainly a deep dive into all three pillars of our government.
Dwight McKee, what say you? I mean, because the corporate media today, and I was watching, the different pundits, the experts, Daryl, if you will. I don't know why you're not on television weighing in, but that's another story. Maybe you're just a little too progressive for them, but that's okay. You'll be on WOL at 12 noon today, Eastern Standard Time, WOL DC News. Everybody tune in, because they're going to be talking about this issue and you'll also be talking about homelessness, which is what we're going to be talking about as well in the second hour. Dwight, I'm just trying to figure out, they keep making this about Trump. And you said he will benefit from this, or he can benefit from this, but this is not about him. Can you explain that, Dwight?
This is not even the nature of the presidency. This is the nature of the country. The country is 150 years older than the government. The country started out as royal trading companies, who put their workers over here to steal and to develop land that they didn't own, and then sent armies over here to protect those workers. Now, those workers then saw an opportunity that they could have a little piece of the rock, so they rebelled and set their own system up. But the country is based on the exploitation of labor and land. And it was 150 years in the making. All the Constitution did was to codify that. In order to understand the United States, you have to first understand it as United States. Is these were
Wait a minute, ETATEF.
estates.
I just wanted to get clear, Daryl, because sometimes he says things so quickly. I miss him. I'm not saying I'm the sharpest blade in the drawer. Okay.
New Jersey was.
Wait a minute. I want to make sure everybody gets this, Dwight. You said it's not simply the United States of America; it's the United States of America. Explain that, please.
New Jersey was the estates of two people that the king granted land to.
Yeah.
Pennsylvania was the estate of one man, William Penn, that they granted land to. Georgia was a state of one family that they granted land to. These were first estates that was set up as part of trading corporations. At some point, they had to share some of these resources, and they began to divide them between themselves. But you have to understand this not as Massachusetts. You have to understand it as the Plymouth Bay Trading Company. Plymouth wasn't a rock. Plymouth was the company that sent the people here who landed on the rock and then named it after the trading company. And so these are business interests, many of them that were controlled by people internationally, controlled by the English or controlled by the Spanish, controlled by the French, who then negotiated other people's land among themselves. And so when you get to the Constitution, what the Constitution did in many ways is just to give process and legitimacy to an existing system. It talked about how you would negotiate these other people's resources and how you would protect your interest around these other people who you have stole or you have enslaved. And so in what government is are the different departments that were set up in order to codify how you could maintain control of other people's land and other people's labor. And so in order to effectively do that and not be liable to laws and treaties,
Mm-hmm.
you by definition have to have impunity. You can be a empire and not have imperialist power by definition. We keep thinking this is some new Jerusalem, when the fact of the matter, this is Rome. This is the model for America is the Roman Empire. It's not Jerusalem. It's not Zion. It's the Roman Empire. And so don't be surprised because we got Caesar. Be surprised because we got an imperial guard. It is the nature of how the country is set up.
Well, when they talk about official acts, then, what does that mean? When we speak to a lot of veterans, Dwight, first you and then you, Daryl Jones, when you speak to a lot of veterans, they're very disappointed when they come back, disenchanted even. They said, I went in for this set of reasons. I thought I was defending democracy, freedom, I'm freeing people. But I got over to this country and I found out that I was really standing guard for Chevron.
Mm-hmm.
I was standing guard for Standard Oil. I mean, that's what I was doing. And then I was standing guard for the mercenaries who've been hired by these corporations. I'm protecting them as they're making six-figure salaries. And my wife or my partner or my husband are going to a payday loan center because they don't have enough money. I mean, these are the stories we hear over and over and over again, Dwight McKee. So what are the official acts? Given that this is the United States, oh boy, you are a lot. But it's true. Because these families still rule the place. They do. I mean, deep down inside. And to show you how powerful they are, Dwight and Daryl, we don't see them. We never see the extremely powerful people. So, Dwight, what are the official acts? What is official? Is the United States business?
Always is never unofficial. You're the president 24 hours a day. You're always a congressman. It is never unofficial. And so, don't get hung up on the rhetoric, up on the sound bites. It becomes official unless you declare it as the president unofficial. You become the last word. That's what Trump was trying to tell them. Is I decide what's classified and what's not classified
Mm-hmm.
because I have that discretion. And so, that's a mind trick. What's official and what's unofficial. It's official unless you say it's not official.
So that's why the documents case, you found everybody had documents, Daryl.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's why I was saying, wait. And many of the documents that then Vice President Biden took home and Senator Biden took home were about Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
This is going back more than a decade. And then we're giving them tens of billions of dollars and no one asks questions. So tell me, I mean, what is our takeaway to your way of thinking, Daryl, about this decision?
Well, the takeaway is some of what Dwight has laid out, and that is that everything for the most part is when you consider an official act. What the Supreme Court, in essence, has done here is that they have created this incredible power of the presidency, and they try to clothe it in saying that, well, we want to be certain that we have a strong president that doesn't feel encumbered and making decisions and acting worried that he's going to be prosecuted for the decisions that he's making to best protect the United States of America. But in putting all of that together, you got to remember, we've gone through 47 presidents, and we've never had this issue. So a president saying that they felt handcuffed in making decisions for the country. So what the Supreme Court now has done is that they've created all of this power in this one person of the president, and not only have they created the power, Santita, but when we talked about the protected acts, they said there's going to be a presumption of the act being protected that the president takes. So if you're going to do, Judge Chunkin is going to do the analysis to make a decision as to what is an official act, what is a private act. Any act of the president, the Supreme Court has said, is clothed with the presumption of correctness, the presumption that it is an official act. And the question is, how do you overcome that presumption? It's a very high bar that the Supreme Court has set. And they set it in such a way, and this is where it gets kind of particularized to former President Trump, because what they then say is not only is there going to be the presumption of the act, but any act that the president takes and anything that they go after, that you're not going to be able to use that in prosecuting acts that are not covered, that are not official acts. So it's just presented in such a way that it makes it very difficult to prosecute a president for unofficial acts, those that when the lower trial court differentiates and decides how to determine what's an official act and what is a private act. They're saying that if it was something that could be an official act, then and evidence of that official act cannot be used if you're going after them for a private act. And it's just so
Dwight,
incredibly.
I feel like I just played Flight of the Bumblebee.
Yeah.
I'm trying to follow this thing.
Well, Daryl, what you have to understand is that not only have they created a power surplus for the presidency, is they themselves have created power surplus for themselves. The fact that 6 men can decide what the president can do and cannot do and declare themselves to be the Supreme Court, that
Okay.
they got the last word for anything constitutional, is an exercise in power beyond the extraordinary.
Mhm.
And that's why I say you have to understand how the government is. What the government does is defines itself as the last word, and and creates a power dynamic for themselves. And if you're not in that loop, you have no authority, you have no voice.
Right.
It's look at how the money is set up. Is a certain people they decided have the right to print the money. And anybody who prints their own money, they say that that money is counterfeit. The only real money is the money that we print, that we declare to be real. That's where the power in this country comes. It becomes by declaration and appeasement. You have a few people who declare themselves in charge, and then you have a buy-in by everybody else
Mhm.
because they're hypnotized by the language.
Mhm.
Eh,
And Dwight and Santita, one of the things that I don't want people to overlook when we're talking about the Supreme Court in particular is this, and Dwight was touching on it. If we look at five of the six that granted this power to the presidency, two of them arguably shouldn't even be sitting on hearing any of this case, and that's Thomas and Alito. They should have nothing to do with this. They should have been recused because of the actions of their spouses and the biasness that they were showing through their spouses. Three of them, Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett, and Gorsuch, were appointed by former President Trump and now are giving him this amazing cover for the criminal cases that he's covering. They shouldn't be involved in the decision making of this at all. This is a point at which we already know the Supreme Court's, the opinion, the American opinion of the Supreme Court is at an all-time low. This doesn't help them at all. This takes it even lower based on the action of what they've done, not only the action that they've done in this case, but the track record that they have with the integrity of Justices Alito and Justice Thomas, and now the actions of Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett, and Gorsuch in this decision. They shouldn't be here. They shouldn't have been listening to the case at all. They should have been recused. You know what? One of the things that, and I think as Dwight says, one of the things that the Democrats have got to get to the point, they've got to act a little bit like Republicans in being in the fight. They should, I've said it before, and I'll say it, and I'll say it, and I'll say it again. They should have put a motion to recuse Thomas and Alito at the forefront of the argument. They should have gone after them directly, saying they should not be sitting listening to this case. Then we wouldn't be here doing the Monday morning quarterbacking, trying to argue why they should, why this has happened. That's what you've got to have the strength. You've got to have the temerity to go up front and go after these issues hard, because they're coming at you hard. And that's what's being revealed now, is the harshness of the actions of these conservative justices, the alt-right conservatives in this particular case. That's what's being displayed here. So next step, what can be done? Both John Nichols as well as Alex Aronson always says, offers the solution. Well, you have to start looking at Supreme Court reform now. And that's where we are. In order to try to start turning some of this back, you got to start looking at Supreme Court reform, adding justices to the Supreme Court, or coming up with some other process to break apart what this runaway train is doing that we're calling the Supreme Court of the United States.
Well, Attorney Darrell Jones, because I think the question for me is, it's not even where they are ideologically. Because I've had some people with whom I have been in fierce opposition ideologically, but they were fair.
Mm-hmm.
They were fair. And I can live with that. if we step back and say, oh, wait, on basic tenets of fairness, we agree. This is right, this is wrong. I remember when my brother, former Congressman Jackson, well, you always hold on to the title. Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr., when he was in Congress, he held the gavel. He had the honor of holding the gavel as the temporary speaker during the contentious discussions about the so-called Obamacare, ACA. And I was talking to, because I have friends all over the map ideologically, but he was struck by Republicans who came to him and said, you were really fair. If you ran for speaker, I'd vote for you. Because all I'm asking for is fairness with this court. And it's not just, it's with the court. The court. I don't care whether it tilts left or right. I can't trust it because they have, unlike the executive branch, unlike the legislative branch, they have no checks. They can do whatever it is that they want. And now since they started measuring these particular issues over the past 100 years, we find out that this is the most corporate friendly court in the history of the Republic.
I think we're missing the point.
Help me.
We're missing the point. Is everybody talks about Trump and Biden having classified information. Nobody talks about why the information is classified and what's in the information. The reason you classify information is because you don't want anybody to know these secrets. I'd venture to say that 90% of everything in these classified documents are things that people have done that are illegal. Assassinations, overthrown governments, stolen banks, conspiracy to control economies, which is what you was talking about, the guy that said he's an economic hitman, found out the hard way.
Yeah.
That the reason WikiLeaks it was under such stress is they were under stress not to tell the truth, not to let the reality of what America does around the world leak out. And so Assange was put in jail in order to keep him from telling the truth.
Dwight, hold on. Stay right there. And it is not even a secret. The CIA were planning to kill him
for telling the truth. Look at the Dulles brothers and what they've done over the last 50 years in terms of single-handedly overthrowing governments in behalf of corporations. And so, again, you have to understand the nature of America. It's an imperial country. It is a military-based country that holds on to its power by and large based on illegal, unethical methods. And to do that from the top, you have to have impunity. Otherwise, each president could be sued by Iraq or Iran or the 5 civilized tribes could sue for Mississippi and for Georgia and for the land that they stole.
Well, Dwight, what protects the United States from those suits now? And do you think that will happen? That will be the case into perpetuity, that these Western powers will be protected? What
protects them is immunity. Is the government gives them immunity. So you can't sue them directly and you can't charge them directly. And the international courts, they don't recognize who has the right to charge them. And so Netanyahu, is charged as a war criminal, but who has the power to enforce it? And who's going to protect them from enforcing it? America. Mayo said power was held based on from the barrel of a gun, and that's the country that we live in. This country is a military business operation, and there are little snippets of it that we can fight for to give it the appearance of democracy. But the fact of the matter is, those are only snippets. That's not the Constitution of the country.
Well, Dwight, Robert Williams says that the Supreme Court has made a mockery of World War II. What do you think of that?
I don't think he understands World War II.
Okay.
World War II was a fight between royal families for control of land and governments. Is mostly who were cousins. And what they were fighting for is not just for European lands, but for the right to colonize. And so you can't understand World War II unless you understand the Treaty of Versailles, where they divided the land. We are so miseducated that we think that democracy is real, and we think that the hype is real. We don't understand the substance of what we're looking at. These were a fight between empires, whether or not World War II, whether or not the British was going to maintain their empire, whether or not Japan was going to expand as an empire, whether or not America would become an international empire, whether or not Germany would control the world, whether or not Russia will stop Germany from controlling the world.
I've got about 3.5 more minutes here, but Robert's pulling up some profound questions, and I want to close with the answers from you. Let me start with you, Dwight, and end with you, because it's a constitutional question, Daryl Jones. He said, I'm not a lawyer, but the kicker is absolute immunity is nowhere in the U.S. Constitution. Dwight McKee?
No, it's not in the Constitution. Well, it is, but it's the law of the land now. There's a lot of things not in the Constitution that becomes the law of the land. And so, in fact, it's pretty much, again, it's always been the law of the land. That whoever was in charge of the government has the absolute. The March of Tears, where they took the 5 states from the civilized tribes, Andrew Jackson pretty much decided that on his own. That was his decision. And nobody, the Supreme Court went against him on that decision, and yet nobody could charge him. And he said, if y'all don't like what I did, send the army and lock me up. But as long as I got the army, I'm going to do whatever I want to do. Mm-hmm. This is not new to the country.
This is how we do it.
This is how we roll.
Okay, come on, Mountel. I knew that would come in handy for me. This is how we do it, yo. I mean, I'm just trying to shine a light. Daryl, the last 2 minutes belong to you.
Yeah, and Dwight is 100% on point, as is the person that wrote, indicating that immunity is not in the Constitution. It's something that is created by the courts. It is where this immunity is coming from. One of the things that we've got to remember, and as Dwight was taking us back, one of the phrases that popped in my mind was learning that you can't sue the king, right? That was the whole thing coming out of this, that you can't sue the king. And that's what's being created here, is that, you're not going to let the president be sued. You're not going to let the president be held accountable. And so they're created, and they've carved out this whole thing with the protected and the official acts. What does it all come down to? What does it all mean? What is the charge that we should be taking from what has happened now? I think that part of the charge has got to be, we have got to focus on the reformation and reforming the courts in order for them to reflect what the American values are, because right now, I don't believe it adequately reflects that. In order for that to happen, we're going to have a very strong Senate Judiciary Committee, as well as members in the House of Representatives that are willing to take those steps forward. And that's going to require voting. But let me tell you this, if nothing else, this has put on steroids the importance of this 2024 election, because if you have former President Trump returning to power, you have him returning to power with now excessive power that has been cloaked and blessed by the Supreme Court as to what he will be able to do. And the question that we've got to ask ourselves right now is, who do we want to hold this amount of power as being president of the United States? That's what is at stake, I think, when we start looking at the election that's coming forward and the power of the vote that has now been just overemphasized with the decisions, not just the one decision, but the decisions that have come from this Supreme Court, Santita.
Well, everybody, the United States of America, all we need to do is have an accurate reading of history. We need to understand how this European project began. It began with the Spaniards, and that was in 1492. And maybe sometime before that. I mean, because a lot of people have been traveling to the Americas. Africans were here way before that. So there's that. But this European colonial project officially began in 1492. And if we understand what colonialism is at its business, that it's seizing resources that do not belong to you and killing all the indigenous people, well, that's a good jumping off point. Dwight McKee, as always, so profound, the United States of America. But that's really what it is, y'all. It is. And if you look at the people who run the world today, or those people who we're told are the wealthiest and who run the world, they're deeply connected. Bill Gates is connected to the Fed, his mother. I mean, you got Jeff Bezos, whose father was deeply embedded in the government. I mean, this stuff ain't happenstance. This is, I'm not mad at anybody. I just think if you just let me know what the game is, Attorney Gerald Jones and Dwight McKee, then I know how to play it. But we have got to have the information, and that's why this rendering of history and understanding the Constitution, I'm going to have to go, is so important for all of us. And Dwight, we're going to bring you back for that. But in the next hour, we're going to be talking about homelessness. Did you know that it is law in Canada that people can be euthanized? They can decide to kill themselves if they don't have homes, if they're poor. And now we're going to ticket the homeless here, and we're going to put them in prison, and we're going to put them to work. And they're going to work for these corporations and make our stuff for nothing, so these corporations can make more money. Yeah, it is disgusting. I see that look on your face, Daryl. It is disgusting, but that's what they're doing. Stay right here for more of the Santita Jackson Show on AM 950 Radio. Everybody like and share. Click on the link for the second hour coming up in just a couple of minutes. Sending you so much love. Oh,